So let's talk about two more further glimpses of Emperor's Children. A rumour engine teaser that seems to be near guaranteed to be a Primaris vehicle of some sort. The Guard combat patrol has been removed in some locations around the world, and other places might follow. And a general roundup of the Warhammer news for the last few days. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today I thought I'd do another quick news summary video, rounding up a bunch of topics that didn't really need their own video all to themselves, but still were interesting little teasers, changes about Games Workshop, or other news. As well as the things mentioned, I thought we could also talk about Games Workshop's stock price soaring, the outcome of their grand narrative event with the fate of the Great Gun in the Cassandra system, and the first company task force managing to win a tournament, which I think is the first one in 10th edition to my knowledge. First up, let's start with the Emperor's Children, where Games Workshop dropped another model teaser for us today, and we also saw a Fallen Slaaneshi Marine on the cover of the Aeldari Codex. As I was expecting, it does seem that ecstatic epistle is indeed going to be a regular series of teasers that they're going to be doing, no doubt showing us small glimpses of the range, though probably eking it out over really quite a long time. I guess it's quite a big deal for 40k to have a new expanded army released as its own standalone faction. And they certainly did similar things to this with the World Eaters and the Sisters of Battle in the past, building hype for their new release, which is in 2025 sometime, so pretty guaranteed to be less than a year to go. If I'd had to guess, I'd say it's probably not going to be right at the end of the year, maybe sometime perhaps summer to September, though I guess we'll wait and see on that front. For the first one of these teasers, we had the pauldrons on the top right here, a couple of Emperor's Children logos with a little bit of variation, plus a bonding studded one. And now for this one, we've got a trio of different heads. I guess these would probably be from the Noise Marine kit, in a similar kind of way as we saw the teasers for the World Eaters Khorne Berserkers last time. Games Workshop described them as two in helmets adorned with elegant decorations, perfectly befitting the Epicureans wearing them, and the third a face rendered in rapt focus, no doubt eager to drink in the sensations of battle. It certainly looks like that guy's got a bit of a wide-eyed stare there. Could certainly paint some massive pupils on that. The one on the right has got a rather Slaaneshi symbol feeling head crest. The one in the middle may be feeling a little bit more base Space Marine, but with some slightly more angular features to that Corvus style helm, plus a round Vox grill. That one maybe feels a little bit more Heresy era Emperor's Children perhaps, and then the third one being a sort of drug-fueled nightmare man, mouth replaced by a great big speaker grill, and a couple of cables burrowing into just above his eye socket for some reason. Who knows what chemicals are going straight to the brain there. The parts themselves again are 3D renders as opposed to actual finished plastic bits, so that's why they have a slightly different texture and maybe look a little bit softer than Games Workshop's plastics. They generally seem to have been fairly well received, and in particular the one on the left feels like he harks back to various bits of Emperor's Children artwork. I'm sure plenty of people are keen to see the finished models put together. Interestingly enough though, the first full colorized Emperor's Children Space Marine that we've seen was on the cover of Codex Aeldari, this particular one seeming to have come off second best in a contest versus Fugan. I guess a pretty apt foe for the Aeldari to be battling against, fighting the forces of the great enemy, but definitely kind of conspicuous that new Aeldari cover art comes out and it just happens to be the big release faction of 2025. Feels like they're trying to build up some rivalry and push them to the forefront of the lore by featuring them in other armies' art. Interestingly enough though, this one appears to confirm that they'll be keeping their gold and purple colour scheme for their 40k release. I feel like they've had a few different ones for various 40k artworks over the years, though generally haven't been all that mainstream in most of them. The last version of the Noise Marines are in this sort of pink and black style armour, at least from their promo shots, though I must admit I do like the gold and purple scheme a fair bit better. Obviously nothing to stop you painting them any which way you want. I'm sure the Emperor's Children are only too keen to have all sorts of different heralders. I did notice that this guy also seems to be putting the breast back into breastplate as well, with just one singular one going on there, and maybe not too dissimilar a style to things like the Demonettes that often feature a sort of mixed thing like that. I'm not sure if that's been a feature of any Slaaneshi Space Marines before, but maybe feels like a bit of a weird one. Certainly seems fitting enough for the Emperor's Children though. Before we move on to Primaris vehicles and kits being removed, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor in Imperium Miniatures. They're a gaming store based in the USA in Indiana, active online since 2017, and Imperium is basically the tabletop gaming arm of upscale hobbies and gaming. They sell Warhammer at the usual USA 15% discount off the marked price. They ship nationwide with free shipping on orders over $100, and they have back orders available on request if you don't manage to find something that Games Workshop sell on their website, which is generally pretty clear and easy to navigate. The reason they wanted to sponsor a video or two was for their Black Friday sales event, a bunch of things that might be useful enough to people over in the USA. They'll have special discounts on Warhammer miniatures for Black Friday itself, so the 29th of November, They'll also have a giveaway running that day, where every purchase over $20 gives you a chance to win a Hivestorm box set, and that also applies to online sales. There's buy 10 and get 1 free on Citadel paints throughout the whole weekend, and then for Cyber Monday on the 2nd of December, all miniatures on sale, and there's free shipping on orders of literally any size. In any case, they'll be linked down in the video description, and a big thank you to them for sponsoring this one. Next up, it appears that we've got something rather Space Marine in the rumour engine. Games Workshop's rumours and teasers are often not really all that helpful. Sometimes you can have a rough guess as to the nature of the faction, sometimes not. But compared with normal, this one is about as specific as it gets, as they've basically given us a turbine, and it's literally the exact same engine as various Space Marine vehicles. The actual turbine bit of it is a 1-to-1 match with things like the back of the Impulsor or the Gladiator tanks, including the 6 little etched bits that are sort of around the rim of it, and all the metallic panels that are on each side as well. I saw a few people speculating that it might be Leagues of Votan, but I really don't think so this time. They do have the similar sort of roll bar-y sort of bits that you can see below it, but as you can see on the Impulsor right next to it, they've got things that are pretty much exactly the same as that. To my mind, this one is pretty certain to be something Space Marine. Just for another example, here's the exact same engine on the Storm Speeder as well. Again, the same design, just in slightly different housing. And again, one of those pipey sort of things that's mounted below it, but this time off to the right. Basically, this near enough confirms that we're getting some sort of new Primaris vehicle, which I guess was pretty inevitable to be happening at some time sooner or later. In general though, in 10th edition, Games Workshop seems to have gone incredibly light on the vehicle and monster releases. We had a couple of things for the Space Marines and Tyranids early in the edition, but in 2024 we've literally had 0 Warhammer 40k monster or vehicle kits releases, unless you count knights and things aimed at the Horus Heresy. And it seems that the Deathcore Krieg aren't getting a major vehicle kit, though I feel like that artillery thing is near enough on the same sort of scale. Lots of possibilities for what a Space Marine turbine engine could be though. Just given that it looks the same as the ones on the tanks and the speeders, it could easily be another tank or flyer of some type. Space Marines often seem to get a release sometime towards the end of the edition, like the Shadow Spear one that they had in 8th, and then the Strike Force Agastas that they had in 9th. It maybe could be something like that, perhaps an equivalent of a Hover Vindicator or Whirlwind perhaps. And we've also got a bunch of Space Marine releases to come during 10th edition as well. Space Wolves, Grey Knights or Black Templars could all get a vehicle, so it could have some interesting possibilities there. It's probably a bit too far afield for it to be a follow-up Dark Angels release, which I wouldn't expect till 11th edition unless anything changes, but one that it might fit quite well with will be something like a Primaris version of Grandmaster Samael. He's basically already got a jet bike with a turbine thing on the back, so that could be the Primaris update for that, or maybe some sort of Storm Speeder style update for the Dark Angels unique speeders. In any case, definitely quite an intriguing one, though maybe a little bit non-specific. Next up, recently-ish, we had the reveal of the Astra Militarum Combat Patrol. It means that the old one's going to be going away, and we're going to get the new one with the Tenatillan Rough Riders, a Command Squad, and a Kazakin Squad. In general, feeling like a pretty weird box that hasn't been all that well received. It's maybe just worth underlining that that means that the Guard Combat Patrol box set that you can see here will be going away, so if you wanted one you probably don't have all that much time left. It looks like it's now been marked as sold out online on the North American web store, the one for the USA and Canada, even though it still seems to be present in the UK and the Australia one. It's been around for a fair while and it doesn't tend to be one of the most hot ticket items ever, so there's at least a reasonable chance that some discount retailers might have some alright stock of it. If you're over in the USA and Canada though, there really might not be that much longer left while they still have stocks. Probably worth considering looking sooner rather than later if you really wanted one. It seems that we might have a little bit more time here in the UK, Europe and Australia. And as ever, feel free to check out the discount affiliates in the video description. They can get this a little bit cheaper while also supporting the channel. I feel like this one was always maybe rated a little bit mid by people. It was exactly the same as the Cadia Stands box set, which maybe lessened the appeal a bit if you'd got that. And the points in the box were one of the lower ones in 40k, though even given that I feel like it wasn't that bad a Combat Patrol box set for Guard. The Infantry, the Command Squad and the Sentinels were all really quite common units to see in a whole load of variant army lists, feeling quite central to the army. Maybe it was just the field ordnance batteries that were a bit hit or miss, though I did quite like the models for them. In any case, I would rate this one better than the one that's going to replace it in terms of help with starting a Guard army. Continuing on the Guard model removals, it does indeed look like the Forge World range is mostly gone now. I've been checking back in on that from time to time, and there was quite a lot of stuff that was marked out of stock, but now lots and lots of things have been moved straight to sold out online. At least in the UK web store, there's 42 Imperial Guard Forge World items. I think literally all but a few of them marked actually sold out online, which means that they're going away and not coming back. The only one that's left on full sale is the Thunderbolt Heavy Fighter, which I can't really imagine is one of the more popular and quickly selling kits, and otherwise there's just a few things that have been marked more temporarily out of stock. and that's the Gorgon, Solar Auxiliary Baneblade, Avenger Strike Fighter, and the Cyclops Demolition Vehicle. I can't imagine that the Cyclops will stick around, but perhaps the Super Heavies and Planes might have a chance. I'm really not too sure how many datasheets will be left outside of Legends in the Imperial Armour Index once they've done the update. It could be anything from nothing to these fighters and maybe the Gorgon at a push. Otherwise though, quite a lot of core units going away, as I mentioned in the previous video. Talking of the previous video, I also talked a little bit about the models that will be removed from the Guard Codex. By my count, it looks like there's going to be around about 5 datasheets removed from the Guard Codex between the data cards that we have and the new units that are coming in. And it seems that the Muratorum Servitors, Ironhound Strachan, Sergeant Harker, and the Regimental Attaches will all go, seeing as they've been removed from sale. I did just see one comment as well on that video that suggested that Sly Marbo might be at risk as well. I must admit he's another one of the ones that I forgot had a resin miniature and not a plastic one. He was one of the last range of resin miniatures to be released by Games Workshop, and it didn't stop Eisenhorn from going away. It means that unless Games Workshop start removing some generic options for some datasheets, like maybe the generic Command Squad, Infantry Squad or Ogren Bodyguard, Marbo could be the last one. Currently he's not marked sold out online on the web store, though I do think it would be a big shame if he went away, as one of the best known and most memed Imperial Guardsmen. I'd guess that at some point in the future there'll be a big Kaschan range refresh and we'll get new kits for them, though who knows whether it'll be next edition or one further in the future. In more general outlook things for Games Workshop, it looks like their stocks have done a rather ridiculous jump up in a day, bringing them to a massive all-time high. What happened was that towards the end of last week they posted a trading update just stating that they were set to beat their sales targets by quite a long way for this year, stating they'd be taking in revenue of around about 260 million versus 235 the year before. That's from the last half of the year since June, I believe. And also their licensing has increased from 30 million to 30 million, probably due to the Space Marine game. I have a feeling that it's just the Space Marine game in general that's driven this massive surge of people to take up the tabletop hobby. We've certainly seen it happen here on YouTube with loads and loads of people discovering the hobby. So it's maybe not any huge surprise that it's reflected in Games Workshop sales figures and hence this big jump. Still though, it looks like they're doing kind of enormously well at the moment, particularly given that this isn't a 40k new edition release year. In general, they always tend to post record numbers in those years, so having the next year after that just casually beat that due to loads of people jumping into it from the Space Marine game is certainly good news for them. Always kind of annoying to hear about these kind of ridiculous profits, and knowing that they've certainly got enough room to charge less money for their model kits, but they choose not to, of course. As well as the big World Champions of Warhammer event that they had last weekend, they also had their Grand Narrative event. Compared with previous ones of this, it was just quite nice to see them post a short update as to the bullet points of what happened. The idea is that they have a bit of an event experience with a whole load of people in cosplay and things, and the games and battles on the tabletop help determine the fate of one corner of Warhammer 40k lore. This time it was actually a system that they've talked about quite a bit in lore updates, which makes it feel a bit more meaningful, and it was set around the one with the Volkus Great Gun, the Cassandra system that was in the Charanoth Expanse, and was the setting for Kill Team Hivestorm. It looks like to the overall outcomes of this particular campaign, the Tau Empire weren't the major antagonists though. The two main things that they had from their story was that basically Chaos tries to take over the world, but the Imperial defenders were able to thwart them and beat them back. And then the Orcs closed in to try and loot the Great Gun for themselves, with a great big battle station called the Kill Sphere protected by a massive force field. But the actions of a rogue trader were able to shut down the shield, allowing the Great Gun to land some enormous hits on the battle station and force it to withdraw. Basically, when the dust settles, it sounds like it was an Imperium victory, able to hold the Cassandra system and the Volkus Great Gun against the oncoming Chaos and Xenos. For the last weekend's tournament results, the headline news was perhaps the Adeptus Custodes winning the World Championships of Warhammer, though beyond that it looked like it was just very, very heavy for both the Guard and the Genestealer Cult doing well at the top of the rankings. Though I think that no one will be too surprised to see some nerfs come their way with the next balance update. One of the most interesting army lists though that topped a tournament was a win for the First Company Task Force. This list going undefeated at an event called Battleshocked GT, a small grand tournament of 26 players, and it was played by Ruben Zhao. This one's an Ultramarines First Company one, though I can't help but think that the list might have done well, kind of in spite of the fact that it was First Company as opposed to because of it. It's the one where you get a single turn of the 4 rerolls Oath of Moment, where you get to reroll all hits and all wounds against your targets. There's a whole bunch of support stratagems, including redeploying Terminators and a +1 to hit, but these are all locked to veteran style datasheets, of which there's only the Terminator Assault Squad here. That looks like they've also chosen to use the Fear-Made Manifest Warlord trait, the one that allows you to inflict casualties on an enemy unit via Battle Shock, which might actually be pairing with the Reavers here, and maybe feels like one of the best uses for them on paper. I guess you could have the Assault Terminators and Reavers delivered to inflict a bunch of battle shock on the enemy and then cause casualties within the squad. Otherwise though, there's Guilliman with a combi weapon lieutenant. I guess he could make the Oath of Moment go further on the critical turn perhaps. There's some intercessors for sticky objectives, infiltrators for deep strike denial, a unit of scouts for deployment up the board, a Land Raider Redeemer which I guess might be delivering the Terminators to battle, a Gladiator Reaper and Repulsor Executioner. I guess the Executioner would quite enjoy the 4 rerolls to wound with the heavy onslaught Gatling cannon that it gets, plus a couple of Storm Speeders with the Hammer Strike and Thunder Strike for potentially ignores cover and a +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles. Lastly, there's a Calidus Assassin for some jumping around the board doing objectives. Really cool to see someone win a grand tournament of any size with this one. It's been basically unplayed since the Codex came out. I don't think anyone's won a tournament with it so far, so respect for that. It is kind of telling though that aside from literally one squad with an enhancement in it, there's not a whole load of the first company detachment rules here, I guess besides Guilliman with the Oath of Moment doubled up. Finally, for the news roundup, I'll just give a quick shout out to the channel's miniature release for the month. If you wanted some STL designs for some guerrilla exosuits, laying down the law with some enormous machine guns, it's the last few days to get your hands on those designs. They'll be around just for a day or two more until they're replaced with the December offering for the Iron Enforcers. Perhaps they could be useful to some people for standing in for some Abhuman Auxilia perhaps, with a very different sort of vibe. Also in the month's offering, there's some more Bomb Collar Penal Legion, making use of some convict Suicide Squad style. And as ever for the Iron Enforcers Channel Army range, they're available via the subscription service on Thangs for $7 a month after the code ATL30 for the first 3 months 30% off, and that'll be links down in the video description. In any case though, let me know your thoughts as to the Emperor's Children reveal, potential Primaris turbines, guard model removals, Games Workshop stocks and more. Look forward to hearing all your takes down in the comments. A big thank you to Imperium Miniatures for sponsoring the video of course. Feel free to check out their Black Friday sales on the 29th, links down in the video description. In any case though, an enormous thank you for listening. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more like this. I'm sure I'll be back for more 40k updates in the near future. Looking forward to getting to grips with the new balanced data slate when it's out. But otherwise an absolutely massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.